He said to me, "My grace is enough for you, because power is made perfect in weakness. So I'll gladly spend my time bragging about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power can rest on me." I recently heard from a therapist this idea that people tend to have more affinity towards someone who will acknowledge their faults rather than someone who is always good at everything they do. Why is that, do you think? Why do you think that people like the flaws in others? Is it some sort of desire to see someone fail? I don't think so. I don't think we desire to see people fail. I think we like noting other people's weaknesses, especially when they will note those weaknesses, because it's important for us to remember that no one is perfect. We all have growth areas, as you might call them, or as Paul just come out and says, weaknesses. And then he does something funny in that passage, doesn't he? He starts to say, I'm going to boast in my weaknesses. I'm going to lift them up so that others can see them. And in those weaknesses, help others discover that God is still at work. God is still at work on me. The other day, we took our kids to Greenfield Village in Dearborn, Michigan. And as we were there, we went into the Pottery House, right, which is a very scriptural place to be. And in that Pottery House, they were working on making pumpkin lanterns for Halloween time, for their Halloween celebrations. And they were working on this clay that's called hard leather, right? It's not actually leather, it's just that texture of like a hardened leather, but it was still malleable, it was still moldable. And the craftsperson was sitting there with this delicate tool, this knife, carving out intricate details in this pumpkin clay. And as she's carving it out, she's pulling it away and transforming it into something even more beautiful. Sometimes we're like that hard leather, that clay. We want to stay just as we are, and God is still working at us. And so God finds the areas where we are most malleable, right? Our weaknesses, our growth areas, and God gets to work. And so lift those up. Lift those areas up and let the world see that we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I started borrowing a prayer from a good friend who offers this before they preach. Instead of just saying, "May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, my strength and our Redeemer," what they say, and I now offer these words, is, "May the words of my mouth, as stumbling as they may be, and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing in your sight." As stumbling as they may be. I know that my words aren't always perfect. I know there may be days when I finish a sermon and recognize that it was not exactly the wording I should have used, or I didn't convey the right message in that time. And times I've looked back and said, boy, I think I maybe have changed a little bit on that thinking. My hope is that even in my weakness, in my stumbling, God is still at work. God is still carving out, molding, pressing, reshaping those areas. May we boast in our weaknesses, because it's in those weaknesses that God is still working. God is still creating. Amen.